Hey guys, it's Yvette. Okay, so I have my instructions for the To You Mystery Quilt, and this is for week number 4. And there are going to be a total of 5 weeks of squares, so we're in the home stretch, guys. I mean, we are getting there. Now, they do say that this is a little more involved, so I'm going to try to take this one a little bit slower. So if the video is quite long, you know, just bear with me. So what we're using for this week are the L, I, D, E, F, G, J, K, and R, S, T fabrics. And I have them laid out here from all of the fabric that I pre-cut. And so we're ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it really slow. I'm going to read step 1, which is basically just having us make units like this out of D and T. I don't know how much battery I have in my camera. Plus, this one might take me a couple nights to film. So let me get started and see how much I can do tonight. I'm going to start with this, and I'll meet you back at the sewing machine. Hey guys, it's Yvette. Okay, so I'm over at the sewing machine, and I have read the instructions on step 1. It's telling me that I'm going to take my D fabrics, which I have 4 of, and then I took, there's so much like lint on everything, sorry, and then I took 8 of the T squares, and I drew a line from corner to corner on those 8 squares on the back of the square, obviously. So then what I'm going to do is I'll take one of the squares and I will sew it from corner to corner like so, because what we're going to want to do is after we sew along this line, we're going to cut a 1/4 inch from that line and discard this. And then we'll go over to the ironing board and iron this over, right? And it's going to be sort of like a flying geese just on the top of these. So it's the same thing as what we did last week, essentially, except using a bigger bottom block. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew 4 of these white squares to the 4 darker squares, just like this. And then we're going to have to go do the trim and the press, and then come back and sew on this side. So let's get started with that. Okay, and like I did every other week, I'm going to chain piece these, or chain sew them, I should say. And basically what that means is I'm not going to cut my thread between each square. I'm just going to sort of go like this, back to back. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the cutting board, and I am going to draw a line 1/4 inch from my sewn line, and then I'm going to trim with my rotary cutter 1/4 inch from this line. And then I'm going to go over to the ironing board, and I'm just going to flip this up, and I'm going to press it down, and we'll have 1/2 of the flying geese on top of this square, and I will be right back and we'll then sew these pieces on. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back from the ironing board. I have just pressed all of the, I think these are the T pieces. I've pressed all of the T pieces out, and now I'm ready to attach the second T piece, and here's my diagonal line right here, and I'm going to place it so that I'm stitching from the top, middle, to the bottom right. So it will go there, and I'm going to chain piece these as well, just like I did with the first half, and here we go. Okay, so now I have them all sewn, just like I had on the left side. Now the right side is done. So I'm going to first go over to the cutting board. I am going to trim off at 1/4 inch to the right of my stitched line, and then I'm going to discard this top piece. Then I'm going to go over to the ironing board, and I'm going to press this piece back, and then we'll have our flying geese up at the top. As soon as I have that ready, that means that these are done for now. So I will set these aside, and I will come to you with step 2. So once you're done with that, you'll put those aside, and we'll go to step 2. Okay. Okay, so I'm back, and the first thing I want to do is show you the finished product on these, you know, sort of flying geese that we made. So here it is with the pieces all pressed out. And as you can see, this was my stitch line, and I just cut off all the excess up here, 1/4 inch from the stitch line. Okay, and then I just press this back, and there you go. So we have 4 of those. I'm going to set those aside. And the next step, actually I said that we were going to do step 2, but as I read the instructions, I see that we can do step 2 and step 3, sorry, step 2 and 3, I'm just going to talk instead of using my fingers, at the same time, because basically what it is you're attaching, in step 2, you're attaching 2 of the R's to the 2 J's, which was that. And then you're taking the other 2 R's and you're attaching it to the 2 G's. So it's basically the same thing, it's just a different color fabric. So what I did already was I marked the back of the R fabric from corner to corner. And it doesn't matter which one, because it's just, you know, the plain white fabric with the stars on the other side. So in the wrong side of the fabric, you want to mark from corner to corner. So what we're going to do after we mark is we will put these together. We're going to put these right sides together, either a J or a G, whichever you want to start with first. And they're exactly the same size. So all you have to do is just make sure that they perfectly align. Well, you know, because I'm a perfectionist, so I say perfectly align. And then once you have them like that, you're going to stitch on this line. Okay, now I'm going to do that for all 4 of these, and then I'll come right back and tell you what we're going to do next. And I'm going to chain piece them, just like I do with everything else. Nope, that's not what we're doing. Let me start over. Actually, okay, I'm not going to start over. Here's what I'm going to tell you, is I just told you to do the wrong thing. I apologize. Hold on. Sorry, it's been a long day, guys. Okay, so this is incorrect. You have the guideline, okay, and what we really want to do is we want to stitch a 1/4 inch from the guideline on both sides. So I'm going to like seam rip this, because what I really want to do is I want to have that guideline, and then I'm going to stitch a line 1/4 inch to the left and 1/4 inch to the right. And then I'll show you what we're going to do after that. So let me do my seam ripping, and I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so give me one moment. I will be right back, and I'll show you where my mistake was, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm back, and what I did was I drew a line on either side of the middle line. So when you're making half square triangles, this is really, in my opinion, the best way to do it. That way there's no ambiguity. You know exactly where you're sewing, where you're cutting. I just wasn't thinking straight when I came over to do this, so here's what I do. I will make my guideline right down the middle, because that's the easiest line to draw first, and then I will mark a line 1/4 inch from on the left, and then also 1/4 inch on the right. Where you are sewing is the line on the left and the line on the right. The line in the middle is where you're going to cut with your rotary cutter after you've sewn those two sides. Okay, so let me go ahead and get that done, and I'll just speed things up a little bit, okay? Okay, so I have sewn the line on either side of the middle line, and I'm going to now go over to the cutting board, and I'm going to cut right down this middle line, and what that'll do is it'll separate these two triangles from each other, and then I'll go over and I will press them so that we have two half square triangles. As soon as I have those ready, I will bring those over. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I just wanted to come real quick and remind you about when we're pressing pieces that have a dark fabric on one side and a white or a light fabric on the other side. You always want to press to the dark side if possible. And the way you know that you're pressing it the correct way is if your dark side is facing up, then you're going to be pressing to the dark side. So I will put my dark fabric up, and as you can see when I flip it over, all of the excess is going to be behind the dark fabric. That way you won't see it behind your white fabric. Okay, that was just a quick reminder. I'll be right back at the sewing machine. Okay, so now I have those all sewn, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the cutting board. I am going to trim off 1/4 inch from my sewn stitch from the top, and then top of whichever side. This side, it's obviously the right side, and this side, it's the left side that I'm going to trim off. And then I'll go over to the ironing board and I will press this open, and we will have those ready. I will bring those back and we'll get to step number 5. I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I'm back from the ironing board where I ironed these pieces, and then on the instructions it tells us to take our F squares and draw a line from corner to corner. So I did that, and then the next piece of step 5 says place a G square on top of your I units. Now I'm pretty sure that they mean F squares, which are the squares that you just marked, because the G squares we've already finished in step 2 and in step 3, where we made the half square triangles, and you don't want to put that on top because, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not correct. Because then over here, it's, anyway, if you read through all the steps, you'll see that it looks like it's just a typo. So here's what we're going to do, because I'm looking at the picture to make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, we have all of our pieces like this that we've just finished. And so now we're calling this an I unit, okay? You're going to take your F squares that you just marked, from corner to corner, okay? And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to place it just like this, because what I want to do is I want the line that I drew on F to mimic the one that is here on your I unit, okay? And then you're going to do the same thing on this side, where you're going to have this line mimic the line that you just sewed here. So it's going to look like they're parallel, right? And that's how we're going to sew them on. We're going to have 4 of this direction and 4 of this direction, just like we did before. So let me put those together. Because I just want to make sure I don't mess up and sew, like I said, too many of one and not enough of the other. Okay, so now I have them all set up like I need to sew them, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sewing these pieces on, and I'm going to chain sew just like I always do. So here we go. Okay, so now I have sewn all of my lines, and I'm going to do the same thing on these as I did on the top, where I'm going to trim off the excess fabric a 1/4 inch from my sewn line. On these, I'm going to cut off this bottom part, and on these, this bottom part. Okay, so I will do that. I will press these open, and then I'll come back and we'll get to the next step. I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I'm back with the next step, and what they asked us to do was to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on our L squares and our K squares. And then we've taken these S rectangles and we are going to make more flying geese. So that'll actually go that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the L first as they requested, and I'm going to attach them to this side. Then we'll need to trim and press before we add the other squares. So let's get started. Okay, so I have finished stitching my lines from top to the bottom, and what I'm going to do is to make my flying geese. You always want to trim a 1/4 inch from your sewn line, and you want to be taking off the excess on the bottom. Obviously, if you cut here, you'd be cutting everything off. You don't want to do that. So we're going to trim a 1/4 inch from this line. Then we're going to press this open, and I'll be right back, and we'll finish the rest of the other side of the flying geese. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have half of my flying geese completed. I have trimmed and pressed open, and now I'm going to add, nope, like this. I'm going to add my, I think this is my K piece. I think. Anyway, oh, and I don't remember if I mentioned that this is step 6 that we're working on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, I'm going to take these pieces and I'm going to attach them. And it overlaps the L piece, and that's why I have to finish this part before I go on to the next one. So I'm going to do that chain piece, and I'll be, well, you'll see. I'll finish them. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the cutting board. I'm going to trim off 1/4 inch this way of my sewn line, and then I'm going to press this open, and we will have our flying geese. So I will be right back, and we'll start step 7. Okay guys, so I'm over at the cutting board, and I'm marking my pieces because we need to sew our T squares to our E squares. And so I've had questions about scant 1/4 inch. Honestly, there's an exercise you can do to make sure that you are sewing to a scant 1/4 inch. And the scant 1/4 inch is very important whenever you're doing piecing, because normally they'll, you want to make sure you're doing it because you're going to eventually be putting these squares together into one big quilt. And if you cut if you sew your seams too large, then your squares are going to be too small. And so you'd much rather have your square be too large because you can cut it down. If it's too small, then you're kind of in trouble. And then you're fudging a lot, which is fine. I mean, if you don't mind doing that, you can absolutely do that. Nobody's, there's almost no right or wrong in quilting. I mean, by the time you end up with a finished quilt, it's your quilt, and you can say whether it's right or wrong. And, so anyway, here's what I do. And listen, doesn't mean that it's right or it's not right, or how you do it is wrong. It really doesn't. But what I tend to do is, as you can see, the 1/4 inch mark, I will lay that mark just to the left of the fabric, or the right, depending on what side you're, if you're right-handed, left-handed, all that stuff. And then I'm going to make my mark. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the mark you're going to make with the pen is going to be thick. I mean, it's a pen, so it's going to be a thicker line. So the other thing I'll do is, when I'm sewing them together, I'll make sure that I am putting my needle just slightly to the left of the line that I've drawn, because now you're also thinking about the width of the needle. So that will make you or give you the scant 1/4 inch that everyone is talking about. And that's the best I can do to sort of explain it to you. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. I will make my last mark and then I'm over to the sewing machine. Be right back. Okay guys, so I'm back. I have my T squares and my E squares, and we need to sew those together. So what I did, they did not say that you had to do this, but I just decided I wanted to, is I drew a 1/4 inch guideline so that I can sew them together. I drew the line on the back side of the fabric, obviously. So now I'm going to lay these pieces right sides together. Okay, and then I'm going to sew down this line. Now, as I just showed you, I put the 1/4 inch line just to the outside of the fabric, and when I'm making this stitch, I'm going to make my line, stitch the line just to the inside of this line, because I'm taking into account the thickness of the pin and the thickness of the needle, because we're trying to make sure we get a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the ironing board, and I'm going to press these open as so. But as I've said before, I probably want to press to the dark side. So if you have your dark fabric facing up towards you, then when you fold over to press, the extra fabric will be behind the dark fabric and not behind the white fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to bring over the last of our S rectangles, and we're going to attach them to the side of these. So I will be right back. Okay, so now I'm back. I've got these pressed out. I'm going to attach the rest of the S rectangles to these pieces, and I'm going to put them right sides together and sew down the middle. And so let's get doing it. I need lunch. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to go and press these open and then go have lunch, and I will come back and we will continue with the next step. Be right back. Okay guys, so I've taken longer break than I said I was going to. But what I'm going to do is we're going to the next step. And the next step is going to involve these pieces here. In the photo of the next step, they take this little piece that we've made, and they show it to you with the black square on the bottom right. So I've set it here that same way. This is the way that they have put out the eye pieces. There's the left eye and the right eye. Okay, so we are going to take the right eye and we're going to attach them to this piece just like that. And then after that, we're going to add something else. But let's do this piece, and then we'll get to the next one after that. Okay? And I didn't mark anything. Just letting you know. So we're going to take one of each, and we're going to flip it over so that they are right sides together, and then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam here. A scant 1/4 inch is what we're going to attempt. And I'm going to attempt it without marking. And we'll just have to see what happens. I'm just a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. Okay, that looks fairly good. Okay, so I have finished stitching that side on. What I'm going to do is go over to the ironing board. I'm going to iron it open and then come right back for the next step. Okay, so now I'm back. I've got my left eye unit, and then I've got, I think these are our G units. Basically, you have two different kinds of these half square triangles. You have this one with the black web, and then the other one with orange web, I think. So anyway, what we're going to be doing is we're going to take one of these, and we're going to attach one of these to the bottom of it. Okay, so I'm going to set this to the side and get ready, and I'm just going to flip this up so they're right sides together, and I'm going to make my stitch right along here, and I'm going to do all of these in a chain piece. So let's get started. Okay, so I've sewn these all together, and now I'm going to head over to the ironing board, and I'm going to iron this out, and then I'll come back with the next step. Be right back. Okay, so now I'm back with these two piles here. This is the first block that we made. This is the one we just made, and we're going to attach those together. So I'm going to take one of each. Right? And I'm going to flip it over so they're right sides together. And I have drawn a line this time, so I'm going to attach those all, and I'm going to chain piece them. So let's get started. Okay, so I have finished stitching all of these, and I did stitch to the inside of the line that I had drawn, and now I'm going to take them over to the pressing board or the ironing board, and I will press them open, and I'll be right back for the next step. Okay guys, so I have these next pieces that we are going to sew together. Let me just take one of each and show you so you can sort of see what I'm doing. So we have the two pieces that we are going to put together as so, and all you have to do is flip the bottom part up, keep them right sides together, and we are going to sew just inside this line for our scant 1/4 inch. And the one thing I wanted to say is, as I was sewing the last piece together with those two pieces, there was one of those pieces that I had not marked. And I had such a time putting those together and making them right. So my suggestion, and this is only my suggestion, you guys can do whatever you want, is mark everything. I always mark everything. You know, when I first started sewing, quilting, I never would mark because if for some reason I had it in my head that if I was really good, then I wouldn't have to mark. Well, now my opinion is, if you don't mark, you're being too cocky and you're just going to mess up. So I mark. The only reason I didn't on that last one of those other pieces that I just put together is because I had already sat down, I was getting ready to sew, and I realized I had it marked, and I thought, you know, this is taking forever anyway, because this block is taking a long time, but I think it's going to be gorgeous, so I'm so excited about it. And so I didn't mark. And so now I'm going to be smart about it, I'm going to mark, and now I'm going to sew. So here we go. Okay, so I have finished piecing these together. I'm going to take them over to the ironing board. I'm going to press them all open, and then I'll come right back for the next step. Okay guys, so now we're back with these, the last four of the half square triangles, and we are going to make them into this pinwheel. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this piece over on top of that one so they're right sides together, and I'm going to do the same with the one on the bottom. we'll sew these, we'll press it, and then we'll sew them together. So let's do that. Okay, I'm going to go press these open and be right back. Okay, so I've sewed these two together and these two together. Now I want to sew them together again so that we have our pinwheel. I will put them right sides together, and I've already drawn my guideline here where we're going to sew. So I'm going to nestle my seams and get them all lined up and then sew down this line. Okay, as you can see, all of my points line up perfectly. So I'm going to go to the I'm going to go to the ironing board. I'm going to press this open, and then I'll come back with our next step. Okay guys, so this is the next step where we're going to attach the 3 squares that complete the top piece. So I have already marked them. All we have to do is I'm going to take the first piece, I'm going to flip them right sides together. I've got my guideline right here, so let's get that sewn. Okay, so there are the first 2 pieces. This is the next one. So I'm going to flip this over, and we're going to sew along this guideline right here. Okay, so here's the whole top row. I'm going to go press this, and I'll come back with the next step. Okay guys, so now I'm back. We've actually like gone out and had dinner and fed the cats and blah blah blah. So now I'm back, and I've got these 3 pieces, which is one of these, your pinwheel, and then the other one, they're just turned opposite way, and they're going to go attached in this order. And I've already made my marks of where to sew, so I'm going to flip these over right sides together, and I'm going to sew right along this line, and here we go. Okay, so I have finished sewing this line here. I am going to open that up, and I'm going to add this piece on the end. I've already marked my line. Okay, so now I'm going to just go and press these open, and I'll be right back for the bottom row that I need to sew together next. Okay guys, so now we're just going to sew together the bottom 3 pieces. I don't know if you can see them all in the camera there, but I just want to make a statement. These pieces are so wonky that they could literally go into the Guinness book. So don't be freaked out. Just, you know, I have learned the art of fudging everything. So I did finally mark, and I swear I think that the problem is because I didn't mark on a whole bunch of those pieces that I was putting together. So all we have to do is now we're going to join them here and here. So I'm going to take the first one, and I'm going to flip it over so they're right sides together. I do have my guideline already drawn on, so let's sew that line and then add this last piece. Okay, so now I'm going to add this piece, here, and I'm going to flip it over. I've got my guideline, and I'm going to sew there. Okay, so now I'm just going to go take my little wonky pieces, and I'm going to go iron them out, and then we'll start putting together the entire square, because we're going to have 3 rows to add together. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, it's me and my wonky blocks that are back. This is the top strip and the middle strip. I'm going to attach them here. I'm going to put them right sides together, and I've already drawn my guideline. So let's get started. And if you're a praying person, you might want to start now. they're off a lot. But, it's mine, all mine. Hold on, what is this? What's going on there? There's like something funky going on right there. Let's see. I mean, am I fixing it? Who the heck knows? Probably not. Alright, well the seams aren't lining up still, but that's okay. You know what? It's mine. You're not gonna, no one should be looking that close anyway. So here we are. Oops. This is the top one and the middle one, and I'm gonna go and draw my line on the last one, and we'll attach that, and we will be done. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I'm back to add the last piece on. I have drawn a guideline. I did actually try to straighten up these two lines. It's pretty much impossible. I may, after I get off with you guys, rip all of this out and try to redo it, because I'm off by about 1/8 of an inch and it's just bothering me. I know I keep, you know, talking a good game, like nobody should be looking that close, but I'm looking that close, and I might have to do that. So let's just finish it up. No biggie. And yeah, so you can at least get an idea of what it's going to look like. All right, here we go. Okay, so I've got that last piece sewn on, and it's better. It's certainly not perfect, but it's better than the first one. So yeah, we'll have to see what I'm going to do there. I'm not really sure, because I think this whole top piece needs to move to your left about 1/8 of an inch, and so I might redo that one. But anyways, you guys, we're finished. Here's that block. And honestly, don't be hard on yourself, because I've been sewing for you know, almost 20 years, and I still can't make, I'm a terrible piecer. Terrible piecer. But here we go. Here it is. And then next week is our last week. So I will see you guys with that one, and then we'll be putting it all together. I'm very excited. See you guys. Bye.